It is 7 p.m. and I see all the counselors are present, and our city manager is present, and our city attorney. And we will be having, let's see, Ashley in the city clerk's office will be doing the recording tonight along with Kelly. So I think we're ready to go. Welcome to the November 2nd City Council formal meeting, and hoping that everyone had a safe weekend. I know that some celebrated Halloween and others celebrated All Saints Day. So hope everyone was very safe and had some great activities there. I'm going to go ahead and we'll start the meeting with roll call, please.
Burgess.
Here.
Mims.
Here.
Sully.
Here.
Taylor.
Here.
Teague.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Weiner.
Here.
All right, so that is Ashley. That's the voice we hear. So welcome again to everybody. We're going to move on to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 2A, and it is Injury Prevention Day. So whereas injuries are the leading cause of death and disability to U.S. children 1 to 18 years old, and whereas unintentional injuries are the leading cause of death for children in the state, and whereas while the number of injuries and deaths vary across the state, every city in Iowa is impacted by these events. And whereas many of these injuries and deaths are preventable with the use of injury prevention education, equipment, and the implementation of strong legislation, and whereas hospitals, state agencies, city government, community organizations, and other partners are crucial in promoting safe practices. And whereas the city of Iowa City is committed to promoting efforts in reducing injuries among children, now therefore I, Bruce Teague, Mayor of Iowa City, do hereby proclaim November 18th, 2020 to be Injury Prevention Day in Iowa City, and urge all residents to partake in activities that help educate and promote the importance of pediatric injury prevention. And here to accept this proclamation is Pamela Ogerworth, and we welcome you now.
Thanks so much, Mayor Teague. And thanks to the rest of the City Council for supporting this proclamation. It's an endeavor, actually a national endeavor for an inaugural event to raise awareness that pediatric unintentional injuries, many of them can be prevented. And just by choosing safer behaviors. So leading children's hospitals around the country have decided on November 18th is the day that we're going to join forces and promote that. I also want to thank Kelly for helping us find some landmarks in Iowa City to light up green. Green is our chosen color for that day. And again, I want to thank the City Council and Mayor Teague and the rest of the community on supporting this important message.
Great, thank you again, Pamela. This is a very important prevention effort. So thanks for all that you're doing. All right, could I get a motion for we're moving on to items 3 through 8. Could I get a motion to approve the consent calendar as amended with items 7B and 7C, the word being resolution is being substituted to set the public hearing not by motion? Could I get an approval, please, or move?
So moved, Taylor.
Second, Sully.
All right. Would anyone from the public like to discuss this item? If so, please raise your hand and I'll call upon you. And we ask that you keep your comments 3 to 5 minutes. And if you're on the phone, you can press *9. And no one. Council discussion. Roll call, please.
Burgess. Mims.
Yes.
Salee.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Teague.
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Weiner.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 9, this is community comment, and this is an opportunity for people in the community to address any topic that is not on the formal agenda. And we ask that you raise your hand, or if you're on the phone, press *9. And I'll call upon you, and we ask that you keep those comments 3 to 5 minutes, please. All right, the first person is David. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be quick today. Just wanted to quickly address the traffic proposals that were brought up during the work session. As we're addressing these questions and problems within the police department, I hope we can appreciate that it's not always the most fruitful thing to go to the police for those answers. Just kind of similar to what was happening the last meeting with the co-responder model, and applying for that grant seems to be following what the police were hoping to do in that question. So Captain Brotherton said something about, for example, these proposed changes, the officers would have to articulate why they made the stop. And this is just sort of an example of another sort of Band-Aid reformist attempt to make some change, because police have always made stops for racist reasons, and they've always been able to justify that in various ways. So, things like that don't really make any meaningful change. And as long as police still have the discretion to be making these stops, then there's always going to be racism and classism present. So, looking through some of the proposals that was in your packet meeting, IFR does not see any systemic shift in the process. And this seems just like another sort of Band-Aid reform to give the appearance of progress without actually changing anything. And of course, this is a systemic problem. Iowa has a very serious systemic problem with traffic stops. I remember even being all the way back in high school, hearing about disproportionate minority contact, things like that. So we share the question that Councillor Thomas brought up, which was, about how do we actually limit the number of stops necessary. And I think we remain most interested in some of those proposals Councillor Thomas brought up that would be able to rely on actual changes to the streets. I think some of the things he was referencing was the self-policing streets, as well as technology to do some of that for us. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Would anyone else like to address council? All right, we do see Trepane. Welcome.
Gratitude. First, I'd like to rise and give praise to Allah, the Creator, and honest to you guys for allowing me this opportunity to speak on behalf of this agenda. I'm trying to get a proclamation basically for Moorish Holy Week, and what this is as I had iterated in the email, is that Moorish Holy Week has to do with the people that are misnomered as Negro, Black, and Colored. And that right there is a denationalization, which is an international crime. So what I am trying to do is bring forth the time where we give honors to the one that had brought forth our nationality when we got freed from slavery in 1865. Moorish Holy Week runs from January 8th to January 15th. This is a commemoration of Noble Drew Ali, the one that had got the education and had approached the incumbent Woodrow Wilson to for his assistance in it. And he had told him it was going to be harder to, it was going to be easier to put pants on a mule than to educate your people that they are not Negro, Black, or colored. So the 15th, January 8th is Noble Drew Ali's birthright, and January 15th is the Moorish New Year. What I was asking the city council to do was to approve this so that we are able to educate those in who they truly are, because you can't be property of any person's government. You have to have a nationality. Every person has to have a nationality, and this is where we stand united and bring forth who we truly are, and we celebrate that during this week. I have reached. I also sent some other documents in other states that where they had approved the proclamation in those states, such as Chicago, North Carolina, and there was one other that I'm unable to recall right now. I don't have the information in front of me, and that's basically my presentation right there. I know you guys got the documents. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, but it is very intensive. Has a lot of good information in there, and it basically tells you what I said in short. With that, I'm done.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address council? All right, seeing none, we will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is 10, planning and zoning matters, and 10A is a zoning code amendment, commercial reuse exception ordinance amending Title 14 zoning code to allow a special exception from standards for the reuse of existing buildings in certain commercial zones. And I'm going to open the public hearing. And staff presentation, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Danielle Sitzman, NDS. This is the first of two staff-initiated zoning code amendments on your agenda tonight. This is for an amendment to the zoning code to allow a special exception from standards for reuse of existing buildings in certain commercial zones. Our current code has a variety of flexibility built into it for just such waivers and exceptions to be granted as tools within our zoning code to provide, as I said, flexibility to adjust standards when unique or non-standard situations occur. Each one has a different level of flexibility and a corresponding increase in the level of scrutiny that's given to it. This slide outlines the three basic mechanisms we have in our zoning code, including regulations having to do with non-conforming situations, which are either uses, structures, developments, or lots that by changes in the zoning code over time have become non-compliant. It's kind of the lowest level, most hands-off approach in our zoning code, basically allowing such non-conforming situations to continue as they are, regardless of how the code changes. The next level is an administrative or staff review level, either through a minor modification or a minor adjustment. Minor adjustments are unique to the Riverfront Crossings District, but minor modifications are sprinkled throughout our code or slight changes to zoning code standards. As I said, they're handled administratively. We do include a public, not a public hearing, an administrative hearing, excuse me, with notices to surrounding neighbors, but not a hearing before a board of commissions, simply with a staff member. And then the third level of scrutiny and additional flexibility is granted through a special exception, which is heard by the Board of Adjustment. That does come with it additional notification and specific criteria in the code to be scrutinized with each request. Again, those are to ensure that larger changes to the zoning code have a more formal review process. In brief tonight, the proposed amendment would expand upon these existing mechanisms of the special exception process that are already included in the zoning code for certain commercial uses in a set number of zoning districts. And the purpose of the amendment is to provide additional flexibility from zoning regulations where altering or expanding a building, an existing building, is difficult due to the building and or site having certain constraints. And in such cases, where staff is proposing that the Board of Adjustment will be able to waive or modify certain additional zoning standards by the special exception process. Over the past 2 years, urban planning staff has noticed that several developments that they've had meetings with potential interested parties having conflicts with the zoning code that were difficult to resolve through our existing toolkit. The specific ordinance tonight would most directly benefit a property at 1120 North Dodge Street, which is just simply the most recent example of these constraints that staff has become aware of over the years and has therefore addressed this through this proposed zoning code change. As I said, the focus on the amendment is to flexibility in a certain set of lower intensity commercial zones shown here in this table. The more intensive commercial uses are not being addressed simply because the intent of this code is to address neighborhood commercial and various for small scale commercial areas on smaller sites in proximity to those neighborhood areas. Again, this would apply to existing buildings, not encouraging tear down of existing structures or to apply to vacant lots. Also, it was designed not to encourage tear downs or impact historic structures. There are existing flexibilities involved with historic structures that are already part of our code. As I said, the list of potential exceptions were drafted in this code. It's a fairly expansive list. However, it focuses mostly on dimensional standards and site improvements. There's a wide variety of places in our code where those can be constraints on small scale development. This proposal would not alter the basic uses allowed in each circumstance. It would run with the property, not the owner or the specific business. As I said, that was the list of things, a fairly expansive list of things that were eligible. There are some things that are simply just not on the table because of the nature of their importance to maintain. Some of those having to do with minimum separation distances, sensitive lands and features such as steep slopes and wooded areas, wetlands, and then also our floodplain management standards. In regards to this proposal, as I said, it would be a special exception before the Board of Adjustment. Every Board of Adjustment special exception case has a set of 7 general criteria that they must show, the applicant must show that they meet. In addition, this particular exception has crafted 5 additional standards in addition to the general approval criteria. And those standards were tailored for the specifics of ensuring compatibility with the exceptions that are being granted with the character of the neighborhood in which the exception would take place. As part of staff's analysis, we did look at all the areas where this code change would be applicable. So this is a map showing all of the eligible zoning code districts throughout the city, as well as where there is an existing building on such zoning property. As you can see, they're throughout the community, citywide. We do acknowledge that some of these areas are probably not small-scale neighborhood, but because of the need to apply these zoning districts, some of them fall into this map. Staff believes that essentially those 5 additional criteria to sort of weed out applications from truly inappropriate requests. And as I said, that goes to the Board of Adjustment for their review and consideration. When drafting code changes, staff does take, of course, the goals and aspirations of the comp plan and the council's strategic plan into account in creating those, as we review all zoning code changes to the criteria of both of those. I will just say that this is adopted by ordinance by 3 readings. It's simply coming to you after having been through the Planning and Zoning Commission. And based on a review of the relevant criteria and potential impacts, staff drafted and recommended the proposed zoning code be amended to illustrate the standards reflected in the staff report and to empower new small neighborhood commercial nodes by allowing the Board of Adjustment to provide additional flexibility from zoning code regulations where applicable. That concludes staff report, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Hearing none. Would anyone from the public like to address this topic? If so, please raise your hand and I'll call upon you. And if you're on the phone, press *9. Seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing. And can I get a motion to give first consideration?
So move, Saleh.
Second, Taylor.
All right, so before we continue with this, since this did go through planning and zoning, I want to just make sure our counselors likely to vote in favor of planning and zoning recommendation. I'm seeing not enough heads. All right, so council discussion.
This is a good idea. It's often been found in cities that we really, the parts of cities that we really like, we discover existing places that we really like. If we try to replicate them, we find that our zoning doesn't allow us to. So this is, I think, an example. Staff has noted that proposals will come forward and our zoning just in effect prohibit the development of these sites. So, I think this is a good idea. I think the applicability standards will, I would hope and feel fairly confident, will avoid any kind of negative consequences, unforeseen negative consequences. So this is a good step forward in trying to revitalize some of these commercial areas.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity to be more creative when you were thinking about existing buildings. So thanks to the staff for bringing this to the forefront for some changes to be made. There are no other comments. Roll call, please.
Mims? Mims?
Yes, had to get to my mute button. Sorry.
Okay. Slee?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weiner?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 10B, zoning code amendment, parking reduction and commercial zone ordinance. Ordinance amending Title 14 zoning code to allow parking reductions through the minor modification process in certain commercial zones. I'm going to open the public meeting and staff presentation, and actually open the public hearing. I want to just clarify that.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the second two ordinances on your agenda tonight generated by staff for your consideration. This is to address constraints, again, on small scale vacant commercial sites serving neighborhoods. This particular proposal is to reduce parking requirements up to 50% of the required number of spaces through the minor modification process. As I walked through in the last presentation, the minor modification process is a staff administrative review, still including an administrative hearing, but not as rigorous in its evaluation of criteria as the special exception process, and not allowing for as great a reduction in the criteria or as broad a number of reductions in the criteria as the previous proposal. Again, this is limited to a certain number of types of zoning districts. And again, it's based on staff's awareness that parking is often a barrier to redevelopment of infill commercial vacant properties. Again, our code is rife with flexibility, sometimes making it difficult for folks to navigate, but really trying to ensure that there's lots of different ways to accomplish good developments and allowing for different mechanisms for doing that. Everything from fee and lieu instead of parking to reductions for different characteristics of development, including historic protections for properties. Again, staff identified a gap in all of this flexibility in the tool set that we currently had, and is proposing that ordinance tonight to fill a certain gap in that toolkit. Often these parking reductions do not apply to multifamily uses in mixed use developments. So tonight, that's what this particular ordinance is hoping to accomplish. The proposed code change would actually replace an existing but unused option that's currently in our code for neighborhood commercial zones, which were based on setting aside land for future development of parking in the land bank rather than developing it immediately. Staff recognized there's no real use of that flexibility, so we're proposing to replace that with something else. Again, this proposed code change would be for new construction, redevelopment, or alteration in a set of defined use of zoning districts. Both for commercial and residential, again, up to half of the required parking to be waived instead of that land banking and through the minor modification process. To ensure that this is tailored towards the types of circumstances that staff has identified needing to have additional aid, we've crafted into the ordinance limits on the square foot of the footprint of the building, also requiring a parking demand analysis to accompany that request to ensure that full consideration is being given to the actual need for parking on a case-by-case basis, and then making sure this is not competing with other potentially historic properties. City analysis, as I said, was based on known locations where we have identified difficulties in the past. looking at zoning districts citywide and when this potential code change would apply. Some commercial areas, again, may be eligible but not entirely meet the purpose of the code. Again, the minor modification process does include some eligibility and consideration. So there's a way to weed out, as I said, not completely appropriate applications, while still allowing those very appropriate ones with supporting documentation to proceed. As I said, again, staff looks at the comprehensive plan as strategic goals of the city council as a basis for crafting such ordinances. And this does require a 3 readings as it is by a zoning code change. And then based on the review of the relevant criteria and impact, staff did draft the attached ordinance. I failed to say it in the last presentation that it was reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they do recommend approval of the proposed change. Happy to answer questions at this point if you have any.
Sound like you're getting off again, Danielle, with no questions. Thank you. Would anyone from the public like to address this topic? If so, please raise your hand. And if you're on the phone, press *9. Seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing. Can I get a motion to give first consideration?
So moved, Weiner.
Moved by Weiner, seconded by?
I'll second, Thomas.
Thank you. And then I just wanted to make sure that our counselors in agreement to go on with the recommendation of the commission. Just shake your head. Okay, great. All right, council discussion.
Again, I think this is another good, move by staff to, see things that aren't working well, that fit in with what our goals are for the community, and to be proactive in bringing these things to us. So thank you.
Roll call, please.
Sully,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Teague,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Weiner,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Mims.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 10C, rezoning at 109, 111, 115, 117, and 121 East College Street, local historic landmark. Ordinance rezoning approximately 0.55 acres of property from central business for property located at 109, 111, 115, 117, and 121 East College Street. And I am sorry, I'm going to reread that. So ordinance rezoning approximately 0.55 acres of property from central business zone to CB10 with a historic district overlay for property located at 109, 111, 115, 117, and 121 East College Street. I'm going to open the public hearing and staff presentation, please.
Thank you, Mayor. This exhibit shows the location of that range of addresses. It's located on the south side of the pedestrian mall between Clinton Street and the Graduate Hotel at Dubuque Street. This is a local landmark rezoning, so the underlying zoning of CB10 remains and simply gains an additional layer of historic district overlay. That allows for and helps to ensure the preservation of historic resources and to require historic review for exterior modifications. This does include the Dooley block, the Crescent block, and the Sears Roebuck & Co. building that split up part of the Dooley block over the history of this part of town. The application is submitted by Tailwinds College Street, Iowa City LLC, as it requested to voluntarily landmark these properties and to be designated as an Iowa City historic landmark. This does bring an additional overlay zoning district, as I said, not changing the underlying district. It also brings with it additional restrictions and additional code flexibility. The designation of the property as a historic landmark, an Iowa City historic landmark, will require commission approval, Historic Preservation Commission approval of any significant changes to the exterior of the building. But it also makes the property eligible for special exceptions that would allow the Board of Adjustment to waive or modify certain zoning requirements, as well as state and federal tax credit funding for rehabilitation work. This request is part of a larger proposed development project that would create a new apartment building in the south portion of these lots while also preserving the historic storefronts. Just a side note, the City of Iowa City is currently working towards nomination of an area of the downtown to be listed as the National Historic, or on the National Register of Historic Places. The subject properties in this application fall within that proposed district, but there's really no conflict tonight with this application. The Planning and Zoning Commission review of this application is because this is landmarked through a zoning overlay and therefore requires them to review the applicable criteria of the comprehensive plan. We feel that is being met very much so through this process. The Historic Preservation Commission also reviews these applications and makes a recommendation to the Planning Commission in the process. In May, they conducted a public hearing and reviewed and evaluated the historic significance of the properties in this address range. And the commission determined that all of the properties meet the requirements for landmark designation and did vote to recommend approval. The landmark designation process has several parts. There are some prerequisite standards that need to be met, and then some additional standards that can be met. This series of slides just simply show you the buildings today. All of the properties met the prerequisite requirements and went above and beyond that in several categories. There was a site inventory form, basically historic preservation research that went into these designations and supports that recommendation by the Historic Preservation Commission. So as far as this development, which we call the Tailwinds Project, shown here is the step that we're at with the historic landmark overlay rezoning. And there's also some additional steps which will involve City Council, including a TIF project proposal and development agreement in the future. And there's also a Historic Preservation Commission review of the exterior modifications, and that's pending this month. And then there's some administrative reviews of site plans and building permits. So based on the applicable review criteria of each board, staff for the various boards did recommend designation. As I said, that was supported both by the Historic Preservation Commission and the Planning and Zoning Commission. So it's coming forward to you tonight with a recommendation of approval. Happy to answer questions.
All right, hearing no questions. Would anyone from the public like to address this topic? If so, please raise your hand. Seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing. And now we are moving on to council. So could I get a motion to give first consideration?
So moved, Taylor.
Second, Mims.
All right. And I just want to know if counselors are inclined to agree with the planning and zoning recommendations. So please shake your head. All right. Council discussion.
Well, I think this is just really important to get the preservation on these buildings. As you walk downtown and walk along the Ped Mall, these are absolutely critical to that whole ambiance, vision, etc., along that part of our downtown, and just make up such a huge part of that Ped Mall. So really happy to see this happening.
I am as well, and I'd like to thank staff and Historic Preservation, the Planning and Zoning Commission. These are projects that really require a lot of work to get to this point. And so it's, you know, congratulations to everyone involved to get us here. I think this is a really interesting opportunity. It's right in our downtown core. It's 4 adjacent continuous properties. So we are preserving not just a building, but 4 buildings that essentially form that section of the block. It's not the complete block, but it's a significant portion of the block. And we're taking advantage, I think, of an interesting opportunity that the deep lots provide so that we can preserve the historic frontage while develop with the backside of the property because it's deep enough to allow us to do that. So we preserve the past, we preserve the building frontages, the grain of those 4 buildings, while moving forward with a pretty significant development project, which also in a sense ties in with the strategy that I've begun to observe on the south side of the Ped Mall on College Street, and that you have Plaza Towers, the Graduate Building, and now this proposed building on the backside of these properties that will form its own kind of architectural composition and complete it in a sense. So I'm really happy that we're preserving the past while allowing that past to have a new life. So we have that continuity in time between past and present, as well as the continuity of the building face along College. So it's, I think, a really interesting example of, you know, how we can make that adaptation and preserve what we find valuable while still allowing for change.
Hearing no other comments. Roll call, please.
Taylor,
Yes.
Teague,
Yes?
Thomas,
Yes.
Weiner,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Mims,
Yes.
Salee.
Yes.
Item passes 7-0. Item number 11, annual TIF certification to the county. Resolution directing the filing of TIF certification under Iowa Code Section 403.19 for the 2020 end of year certification of urban renewal projects. Could I get a motion to approve?
So moved, Thomas.
Seconded Burgess.
All right, do we have any staff that would like to talk about this?
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I'll have just a couple of brief words here. This is the annual certification to the county for any changes that the city is making in its collection of tax increment financing revenues. And every year we need to do this by December 1st, and we're a little bit ahead of the game this year, which is a good thing. Really, it's very similar to other years where we've presented, but I might call out just a couple of things. There are 3 forms that we can use to submit to the county indicating any change in what we want to do. A Form 1 starts a tax increment collection, and you may see on the list of forms that we're turning in that Foster Road for the first time we're going to be collecting TIF revenues there. And interestingly in that project, if you'll remember, that's where 55% of the tax increment that comes out of that district will go towards the Foster Road project, while 45% of it will go towards LMI or affordable housing. And so that begins that project going forward. And then one other form of note is the Form 3, which reduces the amount of TIF funding that we're requesting. Form 3 on the Sycamore Mall and First Avenue TIF district is for reducing our request for what would have been the FY 19, 20, and 21 rebates to the Iowa City Marketplace project, which had defaulted on that. So those are probably the 2 bigger pieces of note, but I would be happy to answer any other questions if you had any.
Wendy, there's a lot of forms there. And one kind of general question I was trying to if you could help me understand what, if any, impact COVID and the economic impacts of COVID have had on our TIF program.
Oh, that's a good question. John, I don't believe I'd have an answer to that right off the bat. You know, because our TIF projects are kind of spread out over a big length of time, that I think that impact also is. So right now, I can't say that we're seeing any direct impact from it, though things may change, economics may change going forward. I don't know, Jeff, I saw you pop on. If you have something to add.
I think you're right, Wendy. I don't know that we've seen anything yet, but if you think back to our recently completed TIFs in the last 5 to 10 years, there's a number that include office space, and you have to wonder how much demand there is for that office space going forward. So I wouldn't be surprised if we had conversations with some of those folks about the possibility of converting some of those upper floors of office to residential, which is very much in demand right now. And then, you know, one TIF that we never got off the ground, but that we started, at least through the urban renewal process, is the Forest View development. And that included a substantial number of office types of buildings along I-80. And again, pretty reasonable to think that everybody's gonna probably give that type of land use second thoughts going forward, at least in the short term. So nothing imminent, but don't be surprised if we get some requests to make some modifications, or if ones that we expected to come through are a little different than what we originally anticipated.
Any other comments for Wendy or questions? Thank you, Wendy. All right, would anyone from the public like to address this topic? If so, please raise your hand and I'll call upon you. Seeing no one, council discussion. Roll call, please.
Teague,
Yes?
Thomas,
Yes.
Weiner,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Mims,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 12, Annual Urban Renewal Report to the State. Resolution approving the fiscal year ending 2020 Annual Urban Renewal Area Report. Could I get a motion to approve?
So moved, Mims.
Second, Weiner.
And would staff like to address this topic?
Sure. Well, if that last item was a look forward to a request for the tax increment finance dollars we need going forward, then this AURR, the Annual Urban Renewal Report to the state, is really a look backward and a sort of compendium of the projects that are in process that snapshot to today. As you notice, that was a 60-page document in there. In your packet, and we apologize for that. It's the state, not us. But I think that the thing that is important to draw from that is the increase in the taxable valuation that our TIF projects have meant to our city. And so I always update a form called New Value created by Iowa City's TIF projects. And essentially it just lists all of our urban renewal projects, their dates, their beginning values and their end values, which the difference of which is that increment that creates that ability to help participate financially in those projects. And in this spreadsheet here, the total of the base values of all of the TIF projects we've assisted over the years has been $28 million. But those same projects' current valuations is up over $215 million now. So the importance of that is the city being able to assist in these projects that that raise the taxable value in the community and really thus end up helping with property tax relief. So just wanted to point that out to you.
Thank you, Wendy, because that I think is something that people don't understand oftentimes, because TIF is complicated. And over the years when I've been on council, when I have talked about TIF being an investment in our community, obviously there's a lot of the other things that we want to see out of it, but it was almost also purely an investment in increasing our tax valuations so that we increase our tax revenues over time, if they're done right. And I think Iowa City's record shows that we have done them right for a long time.
Yeah, when I first came on council, I totally didn't understand TIF. And of course, I got my TIF 101 and began to understand TIF a little better. But your numbers of going from 28 million to 215 million, it says a lot about how TIF is really an investment in the community. And it helps with so many other programs that are important to us. A lot of those social services that we provide, these are some of the funds that we can use to really enhance some of the operational things that we want to do within the city. So I was very happy to see this illustration in the packet.
Thank you for your tireless explanations about TIF, Wendy. They help a lot.
Would anyone from the public like to address this topic? If so, please raise your hand and I will call upon you. If you're on the phone, press *9. Seeing no one, council discussion. Roll call, please.
Thomas,
Yes.
Weiner,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Mims,
Yes.
Salee. Yes. Taylor,
Yes.
Teague.
Yes. Motion passes 7-0. Item number 13, Assessment Appeal 1131 3rd Avenue. Resolution adopting an assessment schedule for snow removal at 1131 3rd Avenue and directing the clerk to certify the same to the Johnson County Treasurer for collection in the same manner as property taxes. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved, Mims.
Second, Saleh.
All right, and do we have staff presenting on this item?
I'm Stan Lauberman, City Senior Housing Inspector. I'm here if you have questions. We did submit a council action report that's laid out the timeline of the event. We experienced a snow event roughly the 24th of January. On the 3rd of February, we had an inspector that observed snow on the sidewalk at 1131 3rd Avenue. And at that point, no snow had been removed. The property was posted. According to our procedure, a notice of violation was mailed to the property owner. And on February 5th, the property was cleared by our snow abatement contractor. At that time, there was mainly patches of ice on the sidewalk. And if you look at the pictures provided, you can see evidence of that. In the contractor photo number 1, it appears that there is even a wheelchair checks going through that snow and ice. Let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Stan at this moment? Would anyone from the public like to address this topic? If so, please raise your hand and I'll call upon you. Welcome, Bill.
Good afternoon, good evening.
Good evening.
So on late August, I sent a letter to Miss Ogden, which is kind of Stan directed me to do, and it kind of outlines the 3 issues that I'm kind of contesting with this. The work done and the need for the work. And by the way, make it very clear that after the notice was posted, the sidewalk was cleared. And as the pictures note, there was just small patches of ice. It kind of shows that there was a response to the notice. The price of the materials and the labor for the vendor are what really concern me. And it doesn't just concern me as a landlord, it concerns me as a taxpayer and as a landlord. But it claims that they took an hour and 25 minutes at $85 an hour to do this spreading of a small amount of sand and salt. And I did a little summary of that it probably could have been done in about 15 minutes. So if you take the $85 an hour and you put 35% labor overhead, with coming from my construction background and being in that, I pretty well knew that labor overhead will run around 35%. Throw 10% profit on, and that would mean the worker received $46.75 an hour. I'd love to see that payroll statement, because I doubt that worker got paid that much. And then you've got $72 for ice melt and sand. In the letter that I sent, I sent Ace Hardware prices on 60-pound tube of sand for $6.59 and a 10-pound bag of ice melt for $5.99. That totals $13.33, including tax. So there was no surplus material left on the job site. He's got a profit margin there of 81%. So then on top of an overbilling and just what I call price gouging, then it gets sent off out of the city to Cedar Rapids to be billed, and I get a bill for $100 to process an invoice for $178, which seems completely exorbitant. Then what's really bothersome is, as a commercial assessed taxpayer, I pay over $5,000 a year in yearly income taxes. And this is a transient homeless housing project. I have city CDBG grant money. I have housing trust fund money. And then I get something like this. Now, when this occurred in February, COVID wasn't occurring. There was some faint understanding that something's going on, but this work was done in February. It was billed in March by the vendor to the city. Then COVID came in and I got the bill from the city in June. And I just kind of look at that and I go, my goodness, I'm expected to pay a bill that is just a total overbilling. And I actually think it's kind of I'm not sure I know the word for it, but I think it's overdone to have to be in front of city council to appeal something like this. I ought to be able to do it with Ms. Ogden and come to a settlement and a compromise. So I'm just looking forward to some kind of a reasonable settlement of this that's fair, because the labor and the materials billed certainly is fair, and it seems kind of odd and overdone to send $100 bill to send a bill. And that, and to add on to this, now I end up having to pay the bill when the CDC puts out that I can't evict tenants when they don't pay rent. So now I have transient homeless people that run out of their Johnson County assistance. They run out of their shelter house rapid rehousing, and they just decide, well, I don't have to pay rent anymore because he can't kick me out. And so now I have to sit and wait till December 31st to see if the CDC renews this, to see if I can start collecting any rent. And what's really disturbing is I have tenants in the building that pay their rent every month. And then I have the people that work the system. And I got a couple of them now working the system. They're just living there free, and I can't do a thing about it.
Thank you, Bill.
That's my appeal. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you, Bill. Chrissy, you can join.
Good evening, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes, good evening.
Thank you. I'd just like to recommend that Mr. Wittig, who's well aware of our services, also avail himself and his tenants of homeless prevention and eviction prevention funds that are available both at the state level and at the local level, funded through both the city's community development block grant funds and through emergency services grant funds. There are substantial resources for tenants who find themselves unable to meet their rent obligations, and this should not be a burden for our property owners and landlords. We would be happy to provide that information and would encourage him to reach out to the network of service providers. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address council? And Bill, I'm sorry, we only allow once to address council. But that was Chrissy Campanelli from the Shelter House, if you would like to reach out to her. And Chrissy Campanelli, sorry about that. All right, anyone else like to address council? Seeing no one. All right, council discussion.
I guess I have a question, Stan. Have you evaluated the charges with regard to this snow removal and determined that you found them reasonable or not?
We found them reasonable. There's the actual work that has to be done, and there's the mobilization cost of getting someone there. And we've also, in the past 2 years, went through purchasing. So this is bid out. It's not a situation where we're cherry picking a contractor. There was a bidding process. We've received multiple bids, and this was the contractor that had the most favorable bid for the city.
I just wanted to make sure that I understood the pictures correctly. So there's 6 pictures here. Are these all on the same day that that the removal happened?
They are not. There should be pictures that are labeled contract removal, and they should have larger date stamps on them. One shows the pre-picture, February 6, 2020 at 10 a.m. And then there's a process photo in there where it shows at 10:36 it has material on the ice that he's causing it to melt. Unfortunately, I don't think I have the post picture in here.
Yeah, and I think that's where, because I think what I see is when they came to remove it, there's a lot of sidewalk shown.
There is. That's correct. But take a look at the picture on February 5th. This was taken by us to document that we needed to still send them out there. But this was the same day that we received another complaint from a citizen who was going through there and felt it was an issue. So our standard is full width and down to concrete. And that's what we hold people to.
So Stan, in those pictures, you're you're referring to kind of the edges of the sidewalk that have some remnants of snow and ice on them. And that's what this company moved and charged that phenomenal amount for?
Yes. And not just, I mean, if you look at some of the first pictures closer to the street, there's a larger portion that's covered. Yes, and it's ice at this time, so it's not as simple as just going out there and removing it in 15 minutes. That material's been on there, that ice has been on there for quite a while. It takes a little bit of effort and product to get that to move.
Yeah. So yeah, and so I do see the 2.5 picture, and I guess it was the 2.3 pictures that I just wasn't clear if on 2.3 it was still to this degree, or had there been change because of, you know.
On 2.3, it was completely covered in our estimation. If you look at the pictures on 2.3, it was completely covered. And we had, maybe some was removed, maybe some of it had melted. If you look at the snow melt on the grass, I would say it was melting. But there's still snow and ice on the sidewalk on February 5th when we called the contractor, which is over a week after the snow event.
Okay. Yeah.
I think the picture from February 5th is particularly compelling to me. It's hard when you have a case where, you know, there was some change after the first notification. At least the property owner tried to get somebody out there, but I think the standards that we have are pretty clear, and certainly we do a good job of communicating those, that it needs to be cleared. And I think the picture from the 5th with the wheelchair tracks in the ice is notable. This owner understood that there were individuals who would be needing to pass by the house, and made some attempt to clear it, but as Stan indicated, if that was more than a week after the snow, that's well beyond what we would typically allow.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a challenge when you're, you know, listening to this. I think there's a few things in it, you know, like the pricing and that type of stuff, but I am going to not, you know, approve anything different. I think that it's pretty important, especially when we see the, you know, the wheelchair track, and that really is evident that people are utilizing this. It's very important for people to remove the snow as the city requirement is laid out for people. There was, you know, certainly that opportunity for the snow to be removed even before they actually got there. So I'm going to uphold this decision, or this fine at this time. Hearing no other comments, roll call, please.
Weiner,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Mims,
Yes.
Salee. Yes. Taylor,
Yes.
Teague,
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 14, we are at 14A, Public Art Advisory Committee. Public Art Advisory Committee has one vacancy to fill an unexpired term upon appointment through June 30th, 2023. And council discussion, and we only have one appointment tonight. And so we can navigate through this.
And just to clarify, that appointment is for an at-large seat, and not, because I know there were 3 of the applicants that actually stated for the art or design professional seat. So that makes a difference, I assume?
Pauline, I don't think it does, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong, but my recollection from previous discussions of this was the professional designation was added to this commission to make sure we had at least one, and I don't remember if it's one or two, people with professional art background, experience, skill set, whatever, on the commission. So the idea is that we have that minimum number of professionals. I don't think there's a problem with having more than that. And if I'm wrong, staff, please correct me.
That's correct. And right now it looks like from the demographic that there's already 4 art or design professionals.
So in other words, Pauline, we could pick another art professional on here.
Well, I would recommend we appoint Sandy Steele, who has a landscaping and design background, which I thought was maybe different than some of the other fine arts backgrounds that we have represented, and thought that was intriguing. I know Sandy from having talked to her about her interest in the South District form-based code, and she thinks holistically about the community, so I'd recommend her.
That's fine. I will agree. I thought there were a lot of good applicants, none that I know personally. So, you know, if others know people personally and advocate, I'm happy to listen, but Laura got hers out first. So I guess I'm happy to support that one.
Yeah, I was also felt Sandy had some interesting qualifications going into this particular appointment, with both a BFA background and some practical experience with, as Laura mentioned, working with landscape architectural and civil design. So it seemed like, you know, it's always useful to have those kinds of, that sensibility and experience to bring to any commission that one works on if it's relevant.
Yeah, I can support Sandy. I have to tell you that there were lots of people that had some great opportunities, and it struck me that hers wasn't from like total art design, but the interest was there, and so I can certainly support her. So unless someone else has another recommendation, it sounds like we have a majority of council supporting Sandy Steele. All right, so if that is the case, then could I get a motion to appoint Sandy Steele to the Public Art Advisory Committee?
So move.
Thomas?
Moved by Salee, seconded by Thomas. Roll call, please.
Burgess.
Yes.
Mims.
Yes.
Salee.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Teague.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Weiner.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 15, announcement of vacancies previous. Ad hoc Truth and Reconciliation Commission, 9 vacancies, term effective upon appointment through June 30th, 2022. Appointment Zoning Board of Adjustments, 1 vacancy to fill a 5-year term. Board of Adjustment, 1 vacancy to fill a 5-year term. Board of Appeals, 1 vacancy to fill a 5-year term. Climate Action Commission, 2 vacancies to fill a 3-year term. Human Rights Commission, 2 vacancies to fill a 3-year term. Parks and Recreation Commission, 2 vacancies to fill a 4-year term. Public Art Advisory Commission, 2 vacancies to fill a 3-year term. Senior Center Commission, 2 vacancies to fill a 3-year term. Applications must be received by 5 p.m. Tuesday, November 10th. Historic Preservation Commission, East College Street, 1 vacancy to fill a 3-year term. Historic Preservation Commission, North Side, 1 vacancy to fill a 3-year term. Historic Preservation Commission, Woodlawn, 1 vacancy to fill an unexpired term. Telecommunications Commission, 1 vacancy to fill a 3-year term. Vacancies will remain open until filled. And we are at item number 16, community comment, UISG. I think Ryan is with us.
Good evening, council. Just not really any updates tonight as still everything is virtual, and so there's not too much happening on campus. Everything's online, but just wanted to say again, students, please go out and vote tomorrow if you have not. The Residence Hall polling locations for the West Side Residence Halls is at Carver Hawkeye Arena, and there will be a shuttle outside of Reno Residence Hall every 15 minutes to take you there. The East Side Residence Halls are their polling places at the Campus Recreation Wellness Center, and for Mayflower, theirs is at Parkview Church. If you're living off campus, you can check out where your polling place is on the Secretary of State's website, and I encourage you to go out and use your voice. So other than that, that's all from me tonight, council. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 17. Any city council updates? I know that we did most of them at our work session. Any final updates? Or I know Mayor Pro Tem, we missed you at work session, so I want to give you an opportunity.
I really don't have anything, but you know, tomorrow is the elections. Everybody have to go and vote. If you don't until now, please, please go and vote. It is very important. That's all I have.
Great. I know that we
And
all
also-
second that.
Also, I'm going to Sudan, but I'm gonna still doing this from there. Hopefully, the internet connection will be great. So I will join you from far.
Great.
Have a safe trip and enjoy.
Thank you.
Safe travels.
Be safe.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. 18. All right. So city manager, any updates from you?
And tonight, Mayor.
Our assistant city manager.
Nothing this evening. Thank you.
Great. City attorney.
For me, thanks.
All right. And so our city clerk, we're actually, it's Kelly, but Ashley was filling in for her while they were working together. So Ashley, do you have any updates?
No, we don't have any updates in the clerk's office.
All right. Thank you. Could I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mims.
Second, Taylor.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank
Any
you.
opposed? We're adjourned. Good night and safe travels, everybody.
Bye. Good
Night.
night.
Vote.
Bye. Yes, vote.
Go vote.